Hello there, it's the 29th of July. We've just had somewhere between half and 3/4 of an inch of fairly heavy rain, and I'm on the Chase development, which is about 60 houses, and the houses are on a very similar slope to that proposed for the 1,000 houses north of Bishopstoke. We can see the houses there. We can also see that there's a digger there because they've been reprofiling the land for many months now actually, because in the spring they had a lot of trouble with runoff from this site. It's clay based, and we can see just looking at it there's a fair old gradient up there. And if I move round to my left, we can see that here we've got, in fact it's a gully, it's a very steep slope down to a gully which then goes into a pond and then into the coarsefish farm. We're about we're about half a mile from the River Itchen as the crow flies, I suspect, and we are not far from Bow Lake Stream, which is a tributary of the Itchen, and silt runoff is a real problem with housing developments, especially when it's so close to an SAC site such as the River Itchen. It causes all sorts of problems, and developers really have to do an awful lot to prevent silt runoff. They clearly haven't done here, because if we move down we can see with just a very small amount of rain we have got fresh silt runoff in the edge here. Clay fines, of course, have a damaging effect on the river should it end up in the river. If we move across to the left here, nearer the gully, we can see that it's been leaking over the edge here. We can see we've got quite a build-up of silt here, and here we can see that it's actually this is where it is actually running off into the gully, and who knows where it goes then. Okay, of course these days developers have to provide extra facilities if they want to build on slopes. Sustainable drainage, of course, is the key word, but there are problems with sustainable drainage, especially at a time when we've got global warming and considerably more rain in the winter months, and in the summer months we're likely to get drought followed by torrential downpours. We can see that there's a fair amount of silt that's come off with this latest amount of rain, which basically shouldn't be here. Now, I was here in the spring, and I can tell you that this runoff was all over this path, and I can't see that the reprofiling work will have made much difference. We can see that they've put in some drainage channels there. Whether that will make a difference, I don't know, but this is very much post-development, and of course it should have been done pre-development. Any sustainable drainage systems should have been thought about much earlier on, and so this is very much a panic measure to my mind. Okay, we've got a couple of suds further down there, but they obviously, developers aren't very keen on suds because they occupy a lot of land which they want to build houses on. Sloping land is basically more risky than flat land for development purposes. And I am very concerned that Eastleigh's local plan is intending to build 1,000 houses north of Bishopstoke, just a few yards further on than this, and it's on land which has a very similar gradient and is very close to Bow Lake Stream, a tributary of the River Itchen. Now, of course, developers think they can build anywhere these days with sustainable drainage, but there are problems with sustainable drainage, particularly in that they need to be carefully designed, obviously. They need to take account of global warming and the likely increases in rainfall. How you determine that, of course, is very difficult, because who knows what the rainfall is going to be. We know that the two wettest winters have occurred recently in the UK. One, of course, was 2013-14, when Winchester was flooded for a prolonged period, because, of course, it was chalk flooding. Once the chalk gets full, there's nowhere else for it to go. And, of course, the other one was 2015-16, which didn't affect the south of England so badly, but it did up north. So we live in a times when it is very difficult on a site like this to build 1,000 houses on a slope that goes down to the River Itchen without risk. And I would argue that this development should be knocked on the head. There are other sites, after all, flat sites, which may be equally close to the River Itchen, but they are unlikely to be as damaging. I'll leave you with one last look. It is not good. I will keep an eye on things over the winter, because if we get heavy rain, I suspect that this path will be covered in silt, and it'll all be going into the gully on the left-hand side, and then on its way to the River Itchen. Not good news for the poor old River Itchen. I shall sign off now.